Jethro, what did you drag into my house? Apparently, this dude right here has drug a praying mantis into my home. Oh, man. I'll see if I can grab it. Little sucker. Yep. That's what happens when you have cats. I don't know how he's gonna react. Yeah. Oh, Lord. See what you got, Jethro? Bet you're real proud of yourself, ain't you? So, go on, buddy. Alright. The abandoned south here. I just wanted to make a quick little impromptu video. Just kind of reminiscing on my EVP video that I made a while back. And some of the stuff that was recorded during that time. It's not like I'm unfamiliar with EVP or paranormal experiences. I didn't want to make my channel about that. Not intentionally, not initially. So, just got back from making a new video, a new documentary style video, kind of like the previous one that I did. So, I just want to make this little impromptu video here, talking about paranormal experiences, ghost stories, if you will. There's probably going to be some cuts and edits because, like I said, this is impromptu. But I was pretty surprised to find the EVP or strange audio, if you will, on my EVP video that I've posted on my channel here, which was not an EVP video initially. It was just a ASMR hiking exploration video, kind of my dip into YouTube, trying to see what I could get out there, if anyone was going to view that and how it would turn out. Right now, I guess I'm getting a little bit more serious into this YouTube thing, and what started out as an ASMR hiking channel has turned into me making documentary style videos and driving out to different places. I isolated the EVPs, pulled them out of the video, put them together in that last one. It has kept me up a lot, just thinking about what it is. And I guess that's something I wonder about a lot. My own spiritual beliefs, not a churchgoer by any means. That's just not my job. I don't get into that. But I am spiritual. Religious texts, I don't doubt most religious texts. I think they have a truth somewhere or other. And pretty much all of them talk about ghosts and spirits and things like that. So do I believe in ghosts? Yes. At this point, given that video, the things that I pulled out of that, and my own life experiences, yes, I can't say that there isn't something there. There might be a spirit world, or maybe it's our own world with spirits walking amongst it. I've considered other things like interdimensional beings, etc. But yeah, I do definitely believe in ghosts. The afterlife, I mean, there's no question about it at this point. this soul does carry on in some way. And even if not that, something is left behind, and maybe in some way a spirit and a soul are separate, if that makes any sense. It kind of does to me, but I couldn't explain how. It's just some things you feel, and you don't necessarily have words for it. So I just thought I would talk about this a little bit because it did get me thinking a lot. The South here, the part of the South that I'm in, there's a lot of old history here, and I do think there are spirits amongst us, if you will. So yeah, I do believe in ghosts. I thought I would just kind of reminisce a little bit and talk about my own experiences with the paranormal. So, one story, the first time I ever experienced anything kind of strange that sticks out to me. I was about 10 years old, so I'm thinking 2002. And around this time, there was a lot of strange stuff happening at my house. The property that me and my family lived on, which would include me, my younger sister, stepmother, my father, and my grandmother. She lived not on the same property, but the property behind us, which plays into this story here. The way this story goes, it had been about this time of the year, so mid to late summer, the dog days of summer, as I like to call it. A lot of times my sister and I, because my grandma lived behind us in a separate house, we would walk over to her house and visit a lot. So there's one night in particular, it was starting to get late, so I'm thinking like 8 p.m. around the time it starts getting dark at this time of year, which sounds about right. But at this time of the year, or at this point in my life, I had a Game Boy, the handheld, the Game Boy. Mine was a Game Boy Color, which I had the first Game Boy before that. Later on, I got the Game Boy Color. And at this point, I did get the Game Boy Advance later on. I think it was later that same year, but at this point in the story, I had the Game Boy Color. I had this really cool carrying case for it. It was huge. You could fit the Game Boy in it, and it had all these spaces to stack your games up, and it would zip up. You put it around your shoulder like it was some kind of like pack or something, like something Indiana Jones would have. So, visiting grandma on this particular day in the summertime, and starts to get late. My sister and I, we were getting ready to walk back to my dad's house. So in between my grandma's and my dad's, we had this trail that went through the woods, and it wasn't a very long trail. I would say maybe 200 feet approximately. Not a very far distance at all. But when you're 10 years old and you're walking through woods like that, at nighttime, things are a little bit freaky. I say 10 years old, I might have been 11, somewhere between 10 and 11 years old. I mean, this story might have taken place 2001, so I'm going to say between 2001 and 2002 is when this happened. So walking through the woods like that. And my dad was always into like watching crime documentaries, and he was into the paranormal himself. He was always watching the ghost documentaries that would come on Travel Channel. I'm sure a lot of you probably remember stuff like that. It's a kind of a thing from around that time period, when people were still watching satellite TV, cable TV. You know, we had no streaming services or anything like that. I feel like an old man now, talking about things like this. When we were at that age, the satellite TV felt futuristic. But Dad was into that stuff, and I guess our imaginations would get pretty wild, and we would get creeped out pretty easily. So my sister and I, a lot of times, it would get dark. My stepmother would come home from work, and around that time, and so we would walk over about the time that my stepmother would be arriving home. So we would visit with Grandma throughout the day, leave there, walk the trail, go to my dad and my stepmom's house, and and then that was how we did the day usually, especially on the weekends or if it was like summer vacation. If we weren't all traveling out somewhere, going to some place for the summer, because in the area I live at, I mean, even now, I'm not close to home, but I'm not too far away from where I grew up at in the town I'm living in now. But there's a lot of places to visit around here. This particular night, I had my Game Boy. I took it with me, and I don't even think I played it a lot because I was usually distracted with something else. But it was just so cool having that in that carrying case that I talked about, and carrying my Game Boy around. It made me feel, I guess, like powerful as a kid. Like every kid wanted a Game Boy and a collection of games, and if you could carry that around with you, that was the coolest thing. Show off to other kids, whatever. And even at the house, I would walk out in the woods and I would carry my Game Boy with me, even though I was never going to play it or anything. But yeah, so it was getting dark, visiting with Grandma, and honestly, at Grandma's house, we were probably watching ghost documentaries on Travel Channel and Discovery Channel and those, or History Channel, those types of channels. So we were kind of creeped out. It was dark. We had to walk the trail in the woods at night. And so a lot of times we would ask Grandma to walk with us, and Grandma's not really afraid of anything. Not in terms of that, and she wasn't afraid to walk that trail or anything. So Grandma would walk the trail with us, and we were creeped out. She went with us, my grandma. We walked back to Dad's, and you got to think the way this trail went through some kind of deep brush and woods and whatnot. And then my grandpa back in the day, he had an old garage. That's where he did his business. He repaired cars for people in the town. That was back in the 80s, the early 90s. Well, my dad's house was right next to that old garage. And the trail would come out in between the garage and Dad's house. And about right there, that's where the security light was at. A lot of properties around here, I'm sure it's like that everywhere, but they have a security light, a light on a big pole that would shine over your home, and other electrical things were hooked to this. It was all tied to like the electric company and that whole infrastructure. So the security light was shining bright. It was usually like a bluish hue that would shine over everything. And we go down the trail. We're walking this trail with Grandma. Get to that point behind my grandpa's garage, and that's how you know you're home safe. You're home free or whatever. We usually say goodnight to Grandma, give her a hug, and then Grandma would walk back through the trail by herself back home. And she would go off to bed or whatever. And then my sister and I would go in the house and we'd eat dinner with Mom and Dad, and then we'd go to bed. Well, on this particular day, that Game Boy I mentioned and the big cool carrying case and all that, get to that part of the trail where it's behind the garage, and I realized, oh, I left my Game Boy behind. So my sister, she goes on into the house and into Dad's house, Well, Grandma and I told Grandma, I left my Game Boy. I need to go back and get it. So Grandma and I walked back. And, you know, the way I was, I didn't need someone to walk with me. But something strange happened here. So, as Grandma and I are walking back down the trail, there's something in the brush. So if you're on the trail facing my grandmother's, you know, at that part of the trail, there's like a bunch of weeds and brush to the right of you. And the left part kind of went down into a gully a little bit. So that part was a little bit more clear. But to the right, it was kind of going uphill into some other woods. And that part tended to be thicker. Something seemingly was walking in the woods along with us. And it even startled my grandma a little bit. She stopped for a moment. Is there something there? Because I guess she thought maybe it was like a stray dog or something like that. And I stopped too. And I'm like, it's probably nothing, Grandma. Let's just keep going. And we, you know, walk all the way back to Grandma's house. Grandma is real tired, and she says, I'm going to go inside. You going to be okay walking back by yourself? I'm like, yeah, Grandma, I don't need you to walk with me. That's my sister's thing. So she tended to be more afraid than I was. So Grandma goes back into the house, and I start up the trail by myself. But the whole time I'm walking, I got creeped out because I kept thinking about that thing that was moving the brush around and everything, that sounded like something was walking in the woods alongside us. I just kept thinking about it, and I tried not to think about it, and I'm going up the trail kind of slowly. I've got my Game Boy now at this point. You know, I picked that up from Grandma's. It was just sitting there, you know, through her front door, so I left it on the kitchen table. But I've got the Game Boy, I'm walking back through, and I just keep thinking about that noise and what was happening whenever we went back through the first time. And there was nothing there this time. Seemingly, there's no noise or anything, just crickets, you know. So yeah, I'm walking up the trail. As I start to think about this, I'm getting creeped out, and the more I think about this, the more I think that my bedroom back at home seems really inviting right now. I'd really like to get back to that and not be out in these creepy woods. So I start picking up the pace a little bit. I start walking a little faster, and then I just keep thinking about that. Just the scenario just keeps playing out in my head, like what could that be? Now at this point in time, at this age, like I said, I was about 10 years old, maybe 11, but I'm thinking I was 10. One of my biggest fears was Bigfoot, believe it or not. I was afraid of Bigfoot. I believed in Bigfoot. I loved reading about it, but I was terrified of Bigfoot. I had this idea that, like, if you came in contact with a Bigfoot in the woods in the middle of the night, that was game over, and you were gonna die in the most horrific way. Like Bigfoot was gonna grab you and smash you against a tree or whatever horrible thing he could do to you, or maybe he was just gonna pick you up and rip your skin off and just fling your body to the side like it was nothing. All these different things my imagination would make up. So thinking about that noise in the woods that was walking alongside us, it made me think of Bigfoot a lot. And I'm walking faster, and I just keep imagining these different scenarios of Bigfoot jumping out and grabbing me. So I take off running eventually. I'm just hauling it, just running. And so I get to that point that I mentioned, right behind my grandpa's old garage, where the blue security light's shining. And it's so strange. I'm playing it out in my head right now as we talk, or as I talk. I'm playing it out how it happened, but something leaped out of the brush at me. From that side where it sounded like something was walking, something leaped out at me. and I yelled, and I fell over on my back. Like, that's how bad, like, that's how big of a jump scare it was. It scared me so bad, I fell over backwards onto my back on the ground. Now, what jumped out in front of me? So weird, so strange. The best I can describe what it was a huge black cat, like a leopard. Like, yeah, honestly, it looked like a jaguar. Like, whenever they're like trying to intimidate, or like, I guess like a jaguar that's about to fight or something, and the fangs were out and everything, and it just looked terrifying. This thing was angry, and when I fell on my back, I was like, that's it, I'm dead. I'm dead. I just reconciled with life and everything. I'm dead. Fell over on my back. But I can tell you, it's like it was there and it wasn't there. That's the weird thing about it. That's why I can't help but think of it as some kind of paranormal experience. This thing, literally, it jumped out and then poof, it was gone. And it didn't run off to the side. It didn't run down into the gully. And I'll tell you another thing about this story. My dad was actually down in the gully. Unbeknownst to me at the time, he was having to do some work in the backyard, which the way our house was laid out, it was way up on top of a hill, and like the other side of it just went into a drop off into that gully. And so Dad was down there pretty much adjacent to the area where I got scared and fell on my back, where this thing jumped out at me. And I remember asking him later on, like, did you see a big cat? Like, he heard me yell, he heard me fell on my back. I think he even hollered at me, like, what's wrong? Like that, you know? And I was just stunned. And to this day, that story, it still puzzles me. It just feels so bizarre. Whatever that thing was, it just, I don't know, it leaped out. It looked like a huge black cat. I mean, when I say huge, like the size of what a jaguar would actually be, like something massive. And it was just like that, like with its fangs and claws. Like, I remember seeing claws too, and fangs, and it was black. It was definitely black, and it's like it was there and it was just gone, like almost like it was never even there to begin with. It's, I don't know, I'm having difficulty finding the words to describe it properly, although I can play it out in my head like perfectly how it all went down. And so anyway, I'm on my back. I see this thing disappear more or less, and I scramble up. It's like a nightmare you're having, like where you're trying to run from something and you don't know if you're going to make it out or not. Like, you feel like no matter how much you run, like it's not enough, like something's catching up to you. It was like that. I'm running back to the house. I run in between the garage and Dad's house. I run around front onto the front porch, and I get inside, and I immediately, my stepmom was there, my dad, I start telling them, well, I mean, Dad was in the backyard, like I said, but my stepmom was there. I'm like laying out to her, and of course, like, you know, they don't take what a 10-year-old kid says seriously. They're just kind of like, oh yeah. But my dad, you know, he heard me yell and everything, and he asked, like, what was wrong, and I told him, and I don't think he really, at the time, believed it either, but that was my first real experience with what I would say paranormal. In my opinion, it was paranormal. I think that was something, I don't like it when people say not of this world, like, because everything's of this world, even if it was a ghost or whatever, or maybe it's not, maybe it's interdimensional, but that was my first experience with the paranormal. So when I made that YouTube video where I pulled the EVPs off my first video and I discovered all that, I was not entirely surprised. That place that I went to, I had known it to be haunted already. I didn't mention it in my video per se, my first video, but yeah, that's my experience with that. I just wanted to make this impromptu video real quick and lay that out to you. So hope you like and subscribe to the channel. Just check out my other content. I've got another documentary which does deal with a ghost story to an extent. It's coming out very soon. I'm working on that. I also want to say just thank you to all the people that have watched, that have checked out my channel, the people who have subscribed. I am trying to make this YouTube thing, I didn't plan on it at first, but I'm trying to make it something I can actually monetize and just see where it goes. And I couldn't have done it without any of you, clicking on the thumbnails, clicking on the channel, and checking out what I have to say and what I have to show. So thank you. That's really all I got to say. But hope you like this. Like and subscribe, and take care.